Hi, Tzip. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Tzili.
Eitan ben Eliyahu, former chief of the Israeli Air Force. Eitan, hi. The pilots in Israel today, what's going on? Tell us a little bit about your service and what does it mean that the pilots don't want to fly if they're being called under this government?
Okay, first of all, what we have to know that the manpower, the Air Force manpower, is based on 80% reservist and only 20% in the regular service. Okay, that's one thing that we have to bear in mind. However, in order to keep their standard of flying, they have to keep flying on an average of at least once a week. So these guys, they come every week to train, but they're also already on call in case they need them. Also, either for an exercise or for an operational mission, which we conduct almost every day. And you hear it on some of that you hear because it's published, but the others is not published. But they fly a lot operational missions. So they are on call, and this is in a way the advantage of Israel being a small country, because it doesn't matter where you live, you can easily be scrambled and go to the base and fly. So if you make a cross-section, a cross-picture of a regular day in the Israeli Air Force, you will see that in the different squadrons and bases, on a regular basis, you see there are like 10 to 30% reservists, which are coming to fly and coming to fly in operational missions.
I think
so by doing so, first of all, they keep, excuse me?
I think it's important to
Excuse me?
I think it's important to mention that in Israel, the majority of the military forces are based on reserve. So if God forbid something happens and there's a war or an operation, you have to call reserve because the regular army is not enough at all.
Right. But then it's all volunteering.
Right. This is accurate, but the difference between the pilots and the other fighters and the ground forces, for instance, is that they are being called like every 2 or 3 months, or only in case there is a war breakout. The pilots, their service and their training is on a regular basis. It goes all the time. You know, if you have a guy who is like a trooper, or or even if he's a paratrooper, or he's a tank driver, they don't have to keep their standard of
performance
of operating for they don't have to do it like every week like the pilots. Pilots have to keep at least 70 to 100 flying hours a year in order to keep their standard of flying. So that's one thing, and they keep it, some of them up to the age of 50 or even 50 something. Those who are not flying jet fighters, they can keep to 55, 56 years old.
Oh.
The fighter pilots between 40 to 50, depends on their ability. So they serve most of their life on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, they continue to serve. Everything is on a volunteer basis. Okay, so this is how we operate. When they say what they said, is that
you mean that they will not obey because of
yes. For the time being, they said this. Yes, for the time being, they said something very simple, which is not exactly disobey. They were very careful because these guys are very smart guys. They were saying, look, next week, we will not come to training. That's all. In other words, it doesn't mean that they give an order now to fly to Iran and they say no. They simply said, listen, this is the most, and we believe this is something which has an impact
I mean,
the
you mean
situation here.
the reform that the government wants.
Yeah, everything is around the government. Yes, the justice system. They want to change the justice system in Israel, which means to change the basic of the ideology and the doctrine and whatever you call it of the Israeli, how it was actually based by the founders.
Right.
And to see what they found. Oh, look at that. Look what happened.
What
Wait.
happened?
Wow, that was amazing. You became an avatar.
Okay, no. Yeah, okay.
Avatar, but you're too dark now.
We don't see you. We
Now
don't.
It's the shades coming. It's the shades, goes up and down because of the. It's almost sundown at this moment, and my apartment is facing, west. So I see the
okay.
sun. I see the sun coming down. It will be okay within a few minutes. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So what I said is, they decided, and some of them, and it started with a small number of pilots, but then it expanded to a very big group, and they start to discuss among themselves, what do we have to do? And they tried to discuss that among themselves, and they said to themselves, let's think what we can do in order to stop and to freeze, what the government is doing right now. And they believe that it will have a very strong impact by only saying next week, instead of coming for training or to flying, we sit down and discuss the situation. And you know what the media and how the media works.
Yes.
In a minute, it blow up to be like the disobey. So we needed some time to explain that this is not yet a full disobey. It doesn't measure. This is just a message to the government. Listen, you better hold yourself, hold it back, and listen to us.
Yeah, but you see, but then the prime minister
Caused,
comes and say, I fired the Minister of Defense.
he said,
he was not
okay,
strong enough against the expression of
he adopted the meaning of what they were doing all the way to the extreme, because when he comes out to the public, he wants to show and to put the pilots like to be seen like the disobey,
right,
which they did not. They did say that once you finish your reform,
right,
and it will make Israel as not a democracy or very much like a dictatorship, it breaks the agreement, which is not in written, but it was an agreed agreement between us as a volunteers and the country. We are willing and happy, and they're really happy to do that, by the way, in a regular time, in the normal times. But if you change the substance, of the state, it breaks the unwritten agreement between the state, between the country, and the pilots. And under this situation, we are telling you in advance that you may find a situation where we will obey. And they don't even say we will obey. They say, some of them, when they were interviewed, they said, if I am in a situation that I have to climb up to the cockpit, I will not have the mental power in order to climb up and turn on the engine and take off.
That's amazing,
So,
because all of us lost our mental, even, every one of us, doesn't matter what we do, lost our mental focusing. We cannot focus, we cannot concentrate. So of course, when you're a pilot and you have such an incredible
I see it very differently. I think that
how you see it?
I think we gained focus and I think we gained energy. It just it goes only towards something very specific.
But not in your life.
Huge. But this is our life. We're fighting for life and death of our country. So I think we're very
but
focused.
of course, but not in our life.
If I understand you correctly,
everyday life.
If I understand you correctly, you take it to the full meaning of the situation. I am right now focusing, because this was your original question, I'm focusing on the pilot.
I understand.
Okay, And I have to explain to you, I think it's important, it put the commanders, the squadron commander and the base commanders and the Air Force commander, it put them in a very, very delicate and sensitive situation.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, they hug, the pilots. They always keep them like they are children. They have to support them. And on the other hand, there is an expectation that they will be against them, to tell them that,
Right.
that what you're doing is illegal or it's not done. So it's like a
huge conflict.
dissonance, to the commander. And even to me myself, I was called up, to the media to respond to what is happening. And I try to say, listen, even for me, I feel I don't know exactly what to say. On one hand, I feel like I understand them, not to say support them or agree with them, but I understand them. And on the other hand, I have to tell them it shouldn't be done, but I understand them. So
It's a
you
clash
cannot
between being a
cannot-
military person and a citizen. And this is exactly where we are now. We're clashing all the time because it's with the military forces, with the police. It's a clash between us and our service. But Eitan, I wanted to take you a little bit backwards. Around 10 years ago, I think it was, when Ruby Rivlin was the president, we were talking about his message to the whole Israel, about unity and accepting each other and living together.
That's right.
And I remember you told me this is the end of two states. I mean, in one hand, because he's a right-wing person, and with all his messages of unity, we're losing the impact of having two states. Now, President Bougie Herzog is calling everybody again for unity. Do you really think it's the right time to have discussions about unity and somehow smear the whole fight one side against another in order to heal the society?
Well, you are touching the most important point. Listen, first of all, every time, if you are a patriot, if you are a loyal citizen, every time it's the time to speak about unity. I mean, unity is all number one. Otherwise, you cannot keep society without a unity. However, to be more precise, the famous speech that President Rivlin made was not only about the Palestinians. He actually divided. He did not divide it, but he described how the Israeli society is divided to how you call it in Hebrew. You say shvatim.
Right, I say tribes.
Tribes.
Tribes, right? Yes, is divided, and he counted, the Orthodox, the extreme Orthodox, the seculars, and the Israelis, and the Arab, and the Arab Israelis, they are citizens of Israel, and Arabs, and Palestinians in Jerusalem, and Palestinians in the West Bank. So it's a mix of everything, and it's a big, big, big challenge to keep unity in such a situation, in such a combination of different tribes in the society. That's one thing. But underneath that, there is something. First of all, there is a dispute. There is a conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And let me remind you that if you count the demography, the number of people between the Jordan and the Mediterranean and the sea, we are 50-50. 50% Palestinians, 50% Jews. So if you just think rationally, the solution must be at least to divide into two states. Then we ended up with 20% Palestinians and 80% Israelis in what we call inside what we call the green line. Okay, what we call the green line. And what you, Tzili, mentioned is something that I've been saying, unfortunately, and I hate to say it, that actually we have already crossed the point of no return, because I don't see anyone who had the power to split,
It's not on the table.
This is the territory between it's simply impossible, because the engagement is so strong already and so complicated. And on the other hand, even the political structure in Israel is so complicated that even if this is the right things to do, or even if you do if you run a poll and you find that more than 50% are in favor of it, I say it unfortunately, and I hate myself saying it.
I know you're right.
That there is I don't see anyone, any leader or any group whom they can implement it, or
So
they
what
can.
future do we
But
have?
that's why I went from president to president, because the position of being president in Israel is beyond politics, but this is the roof of everybody. And going now to the president to talk about getting along, I think it's just smearing time and gaining time
He
for
didn't include
Netanyahu
the Palestinians. I don't think.
Not only that, it's among the Israelis now. And the thing is that we need to really keep fighting on the basic rules of Israel, and I'm not sure that the conversation will help. I think it's a good trick for Bibi only, and it won't lead. And I don't see any leader in the level of Bibi that can really get to anything with him.
You're right, but if you try to look the solution in the level of the president, you may be disappointed. And I tell you why, very simply. The president in Israel has no power.
That's
Right.
right.
It's only, yeah.
I take you back to the phrase which was made by our first Prime Minister Ben-Gurion. He said, the only thing that the Israeli president should enter his nose is to the tissue, no more than that. And that's what you're
So
saying.
tell me, Eitan, so what is our future? I know that I did go from the present and go to the general existence. So what is the future of Israel if there will not be no peace, not two states, no talking? It's not on the table. The issue is not on the table. That's it.
Okay.
So what is our future?
Well, if you see me crying during our conversation, don't be surprised. That's because it's a very difficult. I'm not sure if I have an answer to that. I'm not sure, and it makes me cry. But let me, in spite of this, let me tell you something. Let me tell you, if I have no other choice, and just to adapt the current plan of the extreme rightists, whom they believe that they should control the entire territory between the Jordan River and this. They say, we will be the owners of this land, but we are willing to give the freedom, to the Palestinians to live their private and personal life as they wish. They should not disturb us in governing the territory, if I may call it like that, and we will do our utmost in order to interfere their life. How you do it? It's very, very much like President Trump's plan is to give them. I don't know if you're familiar with territory A, B, and C in the West Bank. It's divided into A, B, and C. So they say, listen, forget about B and C, and we let them live your life in territory A. This is their solution, that they will control their life on a local basis,
Limited.
which is the territories A, and we live like that forever. Unfortunately, you know, like we have done for the last 75 years, or at least 50 years, that we are negotiating among ourselves, not with the other side.
Yes.
It's a problem. What can I tell you? So if you ask a radical, extreme religious guy, he will tell you it is possible, and he will tell you, don't worry, this land was promised to us by God, and God will solve the problem. Something will happen, like it happened in the history. Something will happen. We don't know what. We don't know what. Maybe an earthquake, maybe a Og to Magog, war. Something will happen.
Messiah.
Because everything is based on the fact that God has given us this. This is the promised land. If you want to be optimistic, you try to believe them.
You know,
but if you want to be realistic,
it's very important to be realistic now. I don't think that optimism or pessimism will help us in any way. We have to face things as they are and address it. But I want to take you beyond Israel to the Jewish world. And I say based on, your activity in Anu, the Jewish Museum. We're talking about unity in Israel, and we don't have unity in Israel. We don't have unity among the Jews and the Israelis now. And I don't know to what extent they understand outside of Israel exactly what's going on. And I don't think that part of the forces in the Israeli government now understand what they do and how do they divide, basically, and they build a wall between Israel and the Jews all over the world. And I always feel that Anu, the Jewish Museum, should be the backup plan for the Jews all over, wherever they are. And because I don't want them to give up on Israel, and I don't want them to give up on Jews. And we're facing, we're not Judaism, Jews. We're facing a very new situation because Israel was established as the homeland for all the Jews wherever they are. And all of a sudden, Israel is a question mark. The Jews are a question mark. And we're facing creation of a totally new situation under a rise of anti-Semitism. And I think that we need to have really a backup center of the world for the Jewish world in Israel, in Anu, because it's welcoming everybody. And what do you think about it?
First of all, the bottom line of what we're saying, that there is a disconnect between the Jews in Israel and the Jews in the diaspora, what we used to call it, which is true, unfortunately. And this comes from two reasons. First of all, the Zionism have not accomplished its mission by not being able to bring most, I'm not saying all, but at least most of the Jews to Israel. And there is a dramatic number of Jews who are around the world. Okay, so the proportion between the Jews in Israel and the Jews around the world is about 50-50. Less, actually, in Israel, there is about 35 to 40%.
Right.
So this is the fact. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is that one sec. Okay. And sorry. The other thing is that, for a second, let me take you back to the theory of what does it mean, Zionism? The Zionism is actually very simple and very narrow ideology. It's simply to come to Israel and to settle in Israel. This is the Zionism. The Zionist movement never described what kind of country or what kind of a society it's going to be. Theoretically, based on the Zionism, this could be or either a dictatorship or a fascist, society. They said nothing.
But what about Megillat Ha'atzmaut? The Declaration of Independence was built into Zionism, no?
You are right. You are absolutely right. I go back to the original Zionist ideology, and then the founder of the state, they make the Megillat Ha'atzmaut,
Declaration.
and they try to determine what kind of society it should be. But yet it have left space for different interpretations.
Oh, yeah.
And at the beginning, you know, the 50s and the 60s, is even up to the 70s, to the 60s and the 70s in the last century, it was only there. And then come up and born the movement of Gush Emunim, which are the settlers.
Right.
Right.
And they determined the Zionist
They
movement.
redefined Zionism. They redefined Zionism.
They redefined it, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
They redefined it. In a way, if you ask them, they say, no, we did not redefine it. We actually, what the kibbutznikim used to do in the 50s and 70s, we are doing now. They did it in the Galil and in the, you know, in the center of Israel, and we are doing it in the West Bank. Actually, we took the lead, but they had two different motivations. One was the Zionism, and the other one that the land was given to us by God. And this is a combination which has never been written originally in the Zionist movement. And it brings up today, under this crisis in the Israeli society, the conflict between how they see Zionism and between other people see it.
But this is exactly the thing, because the definition of Judaism is not the same, the definition of Zionism is not the same, and when everybody define it their way and they dismiss the rest, they basically recreate the law in a way that doesn't let you be part of something. I mean, if we're Jews wherever we are, the way we are. I mean, the way I would like to execute it, it's my thing. It doesn't mean that I'm not Jewish, but they say, no, if you're not doing our way, you're not. And it's the same about every definition, because basically for Jews that are outside in Israel and they still want to come and live in Israel, they're Zionists. Although Israel is established, it's post-Zionism, we are there, we have a country, but for some people who are not there, it's still going on. The whole thing is tearing apart the whole Jewish society and the Israeli
and they are
society.
stronger because they are motivated by religion.
But
there's nothing stronger.
I'm looking for a center, an alternative center for everybody to be able to be part of the whole thing by their own way and their own definition. I'm not optimistic.
Well,
that's what I want.
I love what you're saying. And theoretically, it should be the situation, because yes, I'm optimistic to say and to adapt your approach, assuming that the majority is in the center. But unfortunately, the extreme part of the society, they dictate.
They are much stronger. They are willing to die. They are willing to die for their beliefs, and we are not.
We want to live for our beliefs.
Of course, there's a big difference. Listen,
if you look around and you see our political situation, the people whom they dictated it is the extreme right wing of the Israeli society. And you know what? In a way, they collaborate with the extremists in the Palestinians society.
But it's all extremists that give the tone, because they always
but not push now, it so not in hard, the last month.
And they're trying, and they'll push it. But they always switch the tone.
In a situation like this, what you need in a situation like this, you need a leader. And unfortunately, if I look backwards, we had like 3 leaders who were able to go against, the wind. The first one was Ben-Gurion. He had such an opposition to what he had done, but he done it.
Very strong. Yeah.
And then Begin, Prime Minister Begin, who he actually signed the peace agreement with the Egyptians. And the third one was Sharon.
Yeah.
The problem, our problem is that today you look around and you do not see someone who is, maybe someone will be born, all of a sudden, and this will be our surprise. But the only solution is actually buried under someone whom we don't see right now, and this is the leader. He can
According to
lead
the polls
country.
now, it's guns.
Put aside the
According
extremes.
to the polls is unknown.
No, it's guns.
According to the polls, the leader that we are talking about is not.
That's not true. According to the polls, Gantz is now leading. Listen, we don't have much time, and there is something burning in me. I don't know you. I think I saw you many times in Sharon Square in Herzliya. It's possible? Herzliya Pituach? Never mind.
Probably. I used to live there. Now I live in Tel Aviv, but
I know, but I saw you for many years. I'm not in the late years, but so I look at you and I can hear you and I see how much you dedicate and how much you're committed and how much you care, even admitting that you can cry. So when you're a pilot or the chief of the Air Force, where did you look except family? Where did you look for peace of mind, for a ray of sunshine? Where did you look when you were flying with the responsibility and this whatever, when you had to be such a courageous man? Where did you find a way to peacefulness in your heart? And not, I know it's family, but I'm not asking.
Tranquility.
Say it again?
You mean any kind of either retreat or?
Yeah, I don't know. Did you spend a lot of time diving into your soul? Did you read books? Did you listen to music? Where did you look?
Okay. I understand now. I understand what you're saying. First of all, listen, the content of my response to your question up to now, if I had to measure it, it was mostly not optimistic. However, despite the fact that I'm only the first generation who was born in Israel, my father was born in Iran, and my mother was born in Yugoslavia. And they met and fell in love when they were walking in the small streets of the old city of Jerusalem. The romantic
rendezvous
affair was in the old city of Jerusalem. And I served almost 40 years in the Air Force, and I believe it with all my heart and everything. So my roots are so strong, are so solid, that even I was pessimistic, it cannot break my backbone, if you understand what I mean. Sure. So I don't have to look for something, to feel more comfortable. I don't have to search for it and to look for
your ground is very solid, Eitan.
I try to understand it.
Yeah.
Yes, and I try to educate my children and my grandchildren, because we just about to deliver the everything to them, and probably they will face a different reality. I try to do my best for the rest of my life. However, I know that it will be their job. So I don't need. I look around. I'm very kind of how do I say it? And sakran, curious kind of a person.
But when you are with yourself,
so me and my wife, we spend a lot of time, reading. We are traveling from time to time. We see we read, and we see plays and movies and stuff like that. So we keep our normal life out of the problems. I don't need anything more than that, because nothing can break my backbone yet.
So that's what you said.
See the reality. I'm trying to be realistic.
Wow.
Very.
But this is why.
Thank you. Thank you, Tzip.
It was really very, very wonderful to get to know you.
See you next week. Bye, everybody.